That is not an obscure line from Ghostbusters. Greetings, fellow internets. Handsome Hero Piscator here, and this is the pilot to How I Met Your Mother. This episode begins in 2030, and I do want to point out that we have no idea what 2030 is going to look like, and this may not be a fair representation, but moving on. So Ted is telling his children how 25 years ago he wasn't dad, and he had this whole other life. Ted is really breaking ground on becoming an architect, Lily and Marshall are getting engaged, Barney is Barney, and Robin is just joining the group. So briefly I want to talk about each of these 5 characters. We don't get a whole lot of information about Lily and Marshall in general. Lily is a teacher, Marshall is a law student, and they just basically are engaged. They're sort of the Turk and Carla of the series, if you get the reference. Right off the bat, we get the impression that they are the steadfast relationship that's going to last the entire series. Similarly, I feel that Robin doesn't really get a fair handshake in this pilot. She's pretty much cast as the object of Ted's affection, and that's about it. I mean, granted, we do hear that she's an anchor for Metro News 1, and we get some idea of what she's like as a person, but for the most part, we don't get any idea of how rich and in-depth her character is like we do throughout the series. Now granted, this is the pilot, and I know we're not supposed to know everything about her character up front, but I still feel that she was portrayed way too one-dimensionally. And we come to Barney. Now granted, Barney could not have been better cast. Neil Patrick Harris does an amazing job as this character, and very much conveys who he is in a matter of a few sentences, and that's just incredible. Barney is very much the personification of everything my mother was desperate I would not become when I grow up. He's pretty much misogyny incarnate, and I cannot tell you how ironic I find it that Neil Patrick Harris is playing him. And finally, we come to Ted. If Barney is the personification of the male ego, then Ted very much is the personification of the male insecurities. In many ways, Barney is what quote-unquote a lot of guys want to be, but Ted is the sort of guy that most guys are afraid to be. He's nerdy, he's romantic, he's full of self-doubt, he's clingy, he's unsure, he wants love, but he doesn't know how to get it. He's likable and charming, but ultimately his own fear of making mistakes makes him self-defeating. He is so often entrenched with what he wants, or even what he thinks he wants, that he doesn't have a very good idea of what he has. He's very much a character whose eyes aren't on the journey, it's on the destination. Now, Ted is a character that I can deeply empathize with for a lot of different reasons, of which I will go into detail later on in this vlog series. But ultimately, he makes a good central character for all of the reasons I just mentioned. He reflects a lot of our own personal insecurities, and moreover, we get to walk with him through this journey of figuring out what this life is, what his existence means, what romance is to him, truly, and not just what he expects it to be. We get to watch him smash his preconceived notions, learn, grow, enrich himself, become a better person, and not quite this selfish, obsessed individual who would say I love you on the second half of a first date to a girl he just met, 24 hours ago. So all in all, I think this pilot was really good. The dialogue was good, the plot was really important for character development, as minimal as it was, but understandably so for a 22-minute pilot. It was definitely a good platform for the series as a whole. I do like the fact that several secondary characters made their first appearance in the pilot and go on to be major players through the series ahead. And I do also like that these veiled references actually play themselves out on screen at later dates, which is just really kind of entertaining.
Please don't.
Ultimately, from the first episode, the whole cohesion of the entire series was beginning to be established, and I think that was a masterful stroke on the part of the producers. So ultimately, it was an excellent start, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.